Now to manage the edited ingredient here, we need new actions. To be precise, we need actions for starting the editing process and also for canceling or stopping it. Hence, I'll export new constants, start edit, which holds a value of start edit, and also exported constant stop edit, which holds stop edit as a value. Now, these are just the string types. As you learned, we need classes as actions or for our action objects. And I'll name the first class start edit, and of course it implements action. And then I'll copy that because obviously we also need a stop edit class. Now let's start with start edit. It needs that read-only type property, which of course is referring to start edit. And stop edit needs that as well, but of course here we refer to stop edit. Now stop edit actually can stay as it is. It needs no payload because if we want to stop, I just want to reset the edited ingredient and the edited ingredient index to their initial values, so we don't need to change anything. Start edit, however, needs a payload. I need to know which ingredient we're editing. So I'll add a constructor with my public payload, and that payload can just be the number of the ingredient I want to edit. Again, stop edit doesn't require anything. Now, just as before, these new actions should be added to this union action type here at the bottom, so that TypeScript is aware of these actions as available actions inside of the shopping list reducer. So with the pipe symbol, let's add start edit, and let's also add stop edit here. Now that's the actions. Next on to the shopping list reducer. There we got two new cases to handle. We got start and stop edit. So the first case, which we get from shopping list actions, is start edit. Take the string, so all uppercase. And the other case is, of course, from the shopping list actions file, stop edit. Now in start edit and in stop edit, in both cases, we of course return a new object. And in start edit, I want to set my edited ingredient index to the index I'm getting as a payload, and the edited ingredient to the ingredient that belongs to that index. So if we go down to start edit here, first of all, I copy the existing state. And this is now where this is important, by the way. I mentioned all the time that I would recommend that you do this all the time. Now it's more important than ever because now our state is more than just ingredients or than just the edited ingredient index. And for example, here, where we only edit the ingredients, if we don't copy the state first, we lose the edited ingredient and the edited ingredient index information. We don't want to lose that. Hence, copying the state is important. Now here I am copying the state, and now I want to store the edited ingredient index. Now that's part of my action. It's in the payload, because the payload for start edit is just a number, the index of the ingredient I want to edit. And of course, the edited ingredient itself should also be stored. Now that's not part of the payload, but we can get it from our state, because in this part of our application state, we're storing all our ingredients. So of course, we can also get our ingredient from there. And I get this edited ingredient by accessing my state, ingredients for the action payload, because that's the index of the ingredient I want to edit. However, if I would return the ingredient like this would not be that good. Why? Because this is a reference to the ingredient in my ingredients array. And objects and arrays are reference types. So if I now pass this on to, let's say, the shopping edit component, and I start changing properties on this ingredient, I do it right in my store, because this data is right from the store. I instead need to create a new object, which can then be edited without problems by using curly braces and the spread operator. And this now copies that ingredient which I'm getting from my ingredients array. This is then what I store here in edited ingredient. Now for stop edit, I again copy all existing state, and then the idea here simply is to reset edited ingredient to null and edited ingredient index to -1, so to the initial values we had before. All right, So now we got these two cases set up in the reducer. They should work correctly. Now, of course, we also need to take advantage of them by dispatching the right actions. So first of all, in the shopping list component, there in onEditItem, let's no longer use the shopping list service, but instead the store, which we already have injected here. And let's dispatch a new action. And for that, we need to import these actions first. So as shopping list actions from store shopping list actions. So there I access all my actions. I create a new action here based on my start edit class, and start edit takes the index, which I'm conveniently getting as an argument here. So now we're dispatching this action. In the shopping edit component, we can of course cancel editing here with onClear, and I want to let my store know about that. So besides resetting the form and resetting edit mode, I here also want to reach out to my store and dispatch a new action from shopping list actions, and that would be my my stop edit action. And here we don't need to pass in any data because stop edit requires no payload. Now I'll also copy that and dispatch the same when we destroy our shopping edit component, so that if we get rid of that page whilst we are editing an ingredient, I also reset this. Otherwise, we'll get strange behaviors the next time we revisit this shopping edit component. So the next time we try to edit an ingredient. So dispatch this here in ng-on-destroy as well, and also here on clear. And with that, the only missing thing is that we adjust how we fetch our data when we start editing up here in ng-on-init. There, instead of using the shopping list service and listening to started editing, we should use our store and select the shopping list slice. But now instead of using the async pipe in the template, I'll set up my own subscription, which I can, of course, because it is just an observable. Now what we get here is our state data for this part of our store. So the shopping list relevant state. To be precise, the state defined here. This is the type of data we get. Now in that subscription here, I then want to use this data. First of all, I want to check if in my state data, the edited ingredient index, and here I'm getting nice auto-completion because TypeScript understands this entire type setup. If this edited ingredient index is greater than -1. Because if it's not, then I have some kind of weird setup. So in the else case, I haven't really selected anything, and therefore we should set the edit mode to false here. Now, if we do have a valid index, then the edit mode should be true. And I also want to set my edited item equal to my state data edited ingredient. Now, last but not least, then I also want to update my shopping list form as I did it down there in my old subscription, of which I now can get rid, by the way. So now we're initializing the shopping list form with data from that edited item, which we get from NGRX. So now the NGRX flow is complete. We dispatch the start and stop edit actions, and we now also get the data for editing from NGRX. And then once we're done, we also dispatch our update action back to NGRX. So now we got everything managed with NGRX. Now one remaining thing, the subscription here, I would recommend that you also manage this on your own. So store it in this subscription, which we used for the shopping list service subscription before. And therefore this is still managed here in ng-on-destroy and unsubscribed from when we don't need it anymore. With all of that, let me save that. Let me go back to the application and reload it. And now let's try editing the apple. It's not really reflecting my changes back to NGRX, so something is still wrong. The problem is that in the actions I'm dispatching here, for example, update ingredient, I'm referring to the this edited item index. Now, I do have this property here, but I'm not setting it when we start editing. Now, two solutions. We could, of course, set this edited item index equal to state data and then use the edited ingredient index we stored in there. And if we do that, deleting works and updating works as well. And now our data also stays the way it is. So now this works. But of course, this is a bit redundant because we're extracting data from the store, which we then need in the store again to update our data, just to manage it in a component. So we could get rid of the edited item index here altogether and also remove it in the places where we pass that information. Because if you think about it, we already know which data we manage in the store, which data we're currently editing. We're already managing this in our NGRX store. We do have the edited ingredient index in there. So we don't need to receive this as arguments, and hence we can change our actions a little bit. For updating and deleting, I don't really need the index anymore. We could still get it, but we don't need it. Instead, we could say, well, for updating, our payload just is the ingredient because that's all we need. We already know which item we're editing. And for deleting, I need no data at all because I already know which item we're editing because we're starting the edit process with the help of NGRX. So with these changed actions in the reducer, we of course also need to change our logic. For updating, our payload now is the ingredient. So we don't access .ingredient, but just action payload. When we need the index, we just use the state edited ingredient index. The same down there. It's not part of our action anymore. It's already stored in the state. And the same for deleting. There, we also compare our index to the state edited ingredient index. Now, one tiny addition we should therefore also make here is when we do update or delete, we of course also stop the editing process, right? And hence, it would make sense to then also set edited ingredient index to -1 here and set edited ingredient to null. So to reset our ingredient or our edited ingredient data here for updating and for deleting, because these two actions also stop the editing process. Now in the shopping list component here, that also means that for updating, we just forward the new ingredient. It's not part of an object, not the value of some property in an object. Instead, update ingredient takes now just the ingredient as a payload. And with all of that, again, if I edit this, it works just fine, but now we update this correctly behind the scenes, and we have a little bit of a leaner code where we don't manage too much redundant data in our shopping edit component.